when you do circumference measurements on an individual, you want to make sure that you always get it at the exact same site, because that's what you're going to use as your baseline. So when you go to measure them again, you're measuring them precisely the way you did before. And that's why it's really important that you take note of the exact sites at which you measure. So when I measure a client, I typically like to get as many measurements as I can on them. And so especially with a guy, I'll get more measurements maybe on a guy than a girl, because they're usually interested in building up their shoulders and different things like that. So depending, but normally I always start with the neck and I work my way down. So the neck, you just kind of take it mid-neck. So that one's probably the easiest. And I always go on the same side of the individual. So I'm actually on your left side. Let me go over on your right side. Okay, so I normally go the right-hand side, and I do it with everybody. Some people like to use the dominant side, like if he was left-handed, do his left side. If he's right-handed, use the right side. Whichever way you want to do it, just make sure that you do it the same way every time. Okay, so I always do the right side. That way I never mess up and do the wrong side. So that's just me. That's what works best for me. Especially, you know, if I've got a lot of clients, which I often do have a lot of them, it's too confusing trying to keep track of everybody. All right, so first thing you do, the neck, just like midway, get their neck, and you want to pull it. You've got to pull it a little bit snug. You can't pull it. You can't leave it loose, but you don't want to pull it so tight that you're getting a false measurement either. So it's got to be just a little bit snug. When you're using the tape, by the way, there's something to the way you tape. If you get the end with the 1-inch end, and then just go around and let the tape slide, you'll have more facility with it. Because if you're trying to do all kinds of stuff and you've got to get your tape straight and everything, it's just a lot harder. So learn how to use your tape, and the more you use it, the better you get it. But if you start at the 1-inch, just let your fingers slide along it, and then you're able to just pull it. Okay. And then I don't always do shoulders on a female. It just depends on who I've got. If it's female bodybuilder, I probably will. And it just varies with the individual. You know, because it's personal training, you kind of make those judgment calls based on what information you think is going to be relevant for that person. Okay, so if you do the shoulder measurement, you want it around the biggest part of the deltoid. Okay, so wherever the prominence of the deltoid muscle is. All right, so let me see if I can get you there. And you just go right around and make sure the tape is parallel to the floor, and then you take their measurement at that point. Okay. All right, and then the chest measurement I normally take at the nipple line. Okay, and on guys, it's a little bit easier. On women, it's a little bit trickier on some women, and I'll often have them help me. So just put your hands down to your side. And so sometimes I'll have the client actually hold the tape for me, so it goes where I want it to go. Okay, good. All right, and again, you got to make sure it's snug enough so that it doesn't go anywhere. Okay, the biceps or the arm measurement, upper arm, normally take it about midway between the elbow and the shoulder, but you want to get it at the prominence of the biceps. Okay, like wherever the biceps and triceps are most prominent. And so you'll take it at that spot. So you can see where his tricep comes out here, and this is wherever the biggest, basically the biggest part. That's where you're going to take it. But it's usually about midway between the elbow and the shoulder joint. Okay, and then on guys, I often take the forearm. I don't always do it on women, but again, at the biggest part, wherever it's biggest. Okay, waist measurement is wherever they go in the most. That's going to be your waist. Okay, so some resources, if you look at it, they'll say an inch above the navel or at the navel or whatever. But I've found over time everybody's navel's kind of positioned differently, so I get their waist wherever they go in the most. Now, not everybody goes in here. Okay, some people go out here, right? So with the people that really have a lot of extra weight, a lot of times I'll just go over the top of their waistband. It's harder to get it on a big person that has a lot of extra. It's harder to find that narrowest part. So sometimes I'll just go over the waistband of their pants, but you try to get it as much as possible, and then you want them to relax. and just let you take it. And normally, if you think they're going to suck it in, what I normally do with people is have them take a deep breath in, and then I say, okay, blow it all out. So they'll go, they'll suck it in. I go, okay, blow it all out. Oh, darn it. Okay, so make them blow it all out. Okay. On women, I'll take their abdomen, which is where they poof out a little bit there. So obviously not going to do that on Nick. But Nick, turn sideways for me just a little bit here. Okay, for the hip measurement, go ahead and put your feet together. Okay, the hip measurement, you really want to get where at the prominence of their gluteal. So if you just turn sideways a little bit more. Okay, so wherever they come out here the most is where you're going to get the hip. So it's going to be right across their hip. And you want to stay as much as possible off to the side. You don't want to get all in front of them. And, and you do need to get down. You do need to get down at the tape measure. You can't take this measurement standing up and get an accurate reading. Okay, you got to get down here where you can see what's going on.
So really across the hip bone and not across the butt.
Yes, it's at wherever the gluteal muscle is the most prominent, and it does go across the hip bone, but that's where you want it, wherever the gluteals are most prominent. Well, we're not measuring you now. We're measuring that, and that's one reason that's still a marker. Okay, that's still a marker. Then you know where it is. You can't change it with everybody that you do, or it's not going to be consistent. Okay, and then, on guys, the quad, I normally get wherever it's most prominent on the upper leg. So I have them put their feet shoulder width apart, distribute weight equally, and then get it at the prominence of the quadricep. And I do that on guys and athletic females, get them at the prominence of the quadriceps. So wherever it's biggest there. And it's usually like midway between their hip and knee, right around there. And then on women, go ahead and turn sideways again. Sorry, Nick, I'm just pushing you around and moving you around. On women, you want to get right underneath the gluteal fold, which is at the top of the thigh. And sometimes that's a little bit awkward, but you just want to take it right there beneath the gluteal fold. Okay? And then keep your weight equally distributed on both. I know you want to help me, but I want you to just distribute your weight equally. Okay, and then the calf, again, you get it at the biggest part of that gastroc muscle. So the biggest part of the gastrocnemius. And go around.
And would you recommend to your clients to wear specific attire that day?
Yes.
See how he has the hair. How would I know where his biggest
You can. You're good. Okay, thanks. Stay here, though, because I'm going to use you for body fat, too. The question is, would it be advisable to have a client wear a certain type of clothing? Absolutely. Will you get all your clients to do that? No, you won't, because people, especially if they're uncomfortable with their body, you get a lot of people who wear really big baggy clothes, and that's one of the biggest challenges you have as a trainer, is getting them into clothes. Because even when you're working out, you want to see what their muscles are doing. You can't see that when they're wearing big baggy clothes. And so it's a challenge because people that are self-conscious about their body will not wear clothes that actually fit their form. And so it's a challenge. But yeah, as much as possible, you want to be able to see what you're measuring. But you will get people that come in big baggy sweatpants, and you kind of pull the tape a little extra tight to account for that extra fabric that's in there. I've often taken women into the women's locker room and done the measurements there, and had to have them, take some of their clothing off in order to do it. But yeah, preferably, you'd be able to see what you're doing.
Okay, and that was my next question. When you're doing something like this, you would never do it out in the...
Yeah, this is something you'd not ordinarily do in a very public spot. You'd find a place where, you had a little bit more privacy with an individual. So, again, depending if you're working in a gym, if you're working in people's homes, it's a little bit easier because, you don't have that problem. But yeah, you want to be sensitive to that. You don't want people to be you don't want your client to be self-conscious about, you taking their measurements. So, all right, so I'm going to give you a chance to practice this in a minute, but we're going to do body fat first.